This is the Middle-earth philosopher. The most fascinating aspect that I find about the character of the One Ring is its ability to corrupt. Rather, more specifically, corrupt those with power. Throughout its appearances, the ring is often portrayed as if it's reaching out to others with a kind of a silent, grasping fingers trying to seduce and lure whoever the target is into its influence. And the easiest to ensnare are those people who have power, and the hardest people are those without. And it does this because it is an extension of its creator, Sauron, in that Sauron was extremely good appealing to the desires and needs of other people, and somehow portraying himself as the only one who could satisfy those needs. It is something that he has done since the First Age, and what arguably made him the deadliest of Morgoth's generals in the first place. All of them, including Morgoth himself, were cruel and malicious, but only Sauron seems to be able to present himself in a way that hides that malicious nature or otherwise mitigates it enough where a heavy emphasis or threats were not needed, as much at least. Sauron's seduction was economic and practical. So, therefore, since the One Ring held the greatest amount of his native power and essence at the time of its creation, it makes sense that it would follow that pattern as well. However, this begs the question, what made its influence on powerful people so strong that even a Maiar were susceptible to it? Well, if you look at the examples of Boromir and Denethor, it would be the weight of responsibility and desperation. Regarding power, many characters in Middle-earth have great power and authority. It's very common, actually. Within that power and authority contains the native essence of controlling others. In other words, that literally the lives of countless people, or in extreme cases the world itself, is in your hands. After all power really is the ability to act upon another or something else. With that ability comes the gravitas of responsibility. Whether evil or good, all people with power must be aware of how that power is being applied and used, and most importantly, if it is being successful at wherever or whatever the goal of the power is being applied to. Enter Boromir, who of the Fellowship falls easiest to the ring's control. Consider his status and circumstance. He is the latest heir to the ruling stewards of Gondor, royalty in everything but name only. Heir to not only the proud legacy of Gondor as a bastion against enemies in the east and the south, but also by an extension of the legacy of Numenor, the greatest mortal kingdom that has ever existed. Consider that by this time, Gondor is the last remnant of that legacy, and that the Third Age has taken its toll on it to the point where it is now considered weak when compared to the height of its glory. And that legacy alone is not enough to hold off the hell-bent determination of its enemies to destroy it that has lasted for literal centuries. That's the power Boromir wields and the weight that he carries. And this is why he is the most immediate of the Fellowship to hear the ring's call. So much energy being put into not only maintaining the face of success and glory, but on defending what little of it is actually left before it becomes just as much of a memory as their Second Age ancestors. He's desperate, and the ring feels this from him and hits on that directly, offering to answer that need, the need to protect his people, his culture, and restore them to their proper place. The same applies even more so for his father, who carries the full weight and knowledge of Gondor's predicament. His situation is more interesting in that, going by the books, he has been having mental duels with the ancient Maiar via the Palantir, and while not falling to Sauron's direct seduction, he is, however, outflanked by being swamped with images of overwhelming evil and Gondor's eventual fall. And then add on to that he knows that the last heir of the line of kings from Numenor is on his way to Gondor, and has the ability to win over the people of Gondor because he seems successful at everything that he does, when he fought for them under another name. Even Denethor's own father, Ecthelion, seems to have fallen under this sway, and Because of this, this actually affects Denethor's relationship with his son Faramir and his other son Boromir. So Denethor is also desperate, but desperate to prove himself as a successful ruler like his predecessors, and a successful ruler with a successful line to come after him as well. Arguably, his one hope in that being Boromir, being able to succeed where he has struggled, wielding the One Ring to do it as well, kind of like Thor's hammer. This extra weight added to the aforementioned factors eventually breaks Denethor when his last hope is then quashed by Boromir's death. Faramir recognizes this for what it is, and calls out his father for what the ring is going to do to him, as well as what it would have done to Boromir had he survived and actually gotten the ring and brought it back to Gondor. However, that's just mortals, but again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the power of the One Ring seems to extend to even immortals. Gandalf, a powerful Maiar himself, feels not only the voice and temptation of the ring, but also its true nature of evil. He refuses to even touch it, and in the Fellowship of the Ring movie, explicitly says what the ring is going to say to him in order to corrupt him, and that it will eventually succeed in doing so. Now, I still don't get in how Sauron was that powerful that others of his own species could basically get owned by him, but I digress. To quote another famous franchise and a possible character who's almost, if not more evil than Sauron himself, people who have power are always afraid to lose that power, to fail in those responsibilities or those under him. And that makes them weak and therefore easily manipulable as far as the ring is concerned. This is also, however, reflected in weaker quote-unquote characters as well. Hobbits Smeagol, Bilbo, and Frodo. All three are different characters with different moral spectrums, but one thing that they do have in common is a lack of great power. They're not great kings leading huge armies or trying to conquer whole swaths of land or protect said land. They're just basic everyday people pretty much doing everyday things. Therefore, that susceptibility of desperation isn't there, or at the very least is very much well covered. Of course, we all know that the ring does its work on them, but it's different from how it relates to the rulers or people with power. It's slower, more insidious, not promising any kind of power other than just having it. It's like the ring is trying to push them into the same point of corruption where it corrupts kings and rulers, as they're not naturally there within their own nature. And yet, the ring finds that it can't do that entirely. So, what does it do instead? It drives them mad. The ring burdens them by polluting their simple needs and desires into something that they know is perverse, and they struggle against it. But that struggle slowly warps them, warps those characters, even physically. The ring makes the characters create that desperation that it then uses to bring them down. And this is best shown in the final appearance at Mount Doom, where Frodo, who has thus far successfully warded off the corruption, now falls into it. Because this is not just the place that the One Ring was made, but it's also where Frodo's desperation was at its greatest, having to bear the weight of this mental struggle that he's been dealing with for the entirety of the journey. Struggle has made him physically and mentally exhausted, so that by the time that he reaches the place where the ring was made, where its power is greatest, it was no question that was going to take him down. But that is how and why the One Ring corrupts those with great power and those with weaker power, and how if it can't corrupt you, it's going to break you in the attempt. But let me know if you agree or disagree with that thought. And this is the Middle-earth Philosopher, and you guys have a good day.